Bin Century, we monitor tens of thousands of feed bins every day, and we add thousands more to our service every single month. Why? Because we can make people money immediately. It's not just about inventory levels. It's about out-of-feed events and feed reclaims and worker safety and FCR improvement at your barns. That's right, we can improve your FCR performance by multiple points. Go to bincentury.com and let us know how to help you.
Welcome back to CEOs of the Industry. I'm your host, Jim Eadie. Today we have John Prestage, CEO of Prestage Farms. Welcome, John.
Thank you.
And the last time we had you on the show, it was Bill's Hall of Fame induction and a couple of down years in the swine industry. Things are turning around. I'm excited to have you back.
Thank you, sir. It's good to be back. You're right. We've had some rough years in the last 5, but last year was pretty decent, and this year is a record year for us, both in turkeys and hogs. So, and on top of that, it's a 53-week fiscal year for us. So we liked it so much we extended it a week.
Well, we'll take the good news and so Prestage Farms has continued to grow into one of the largest family-owned pork and poultry companies in the U.S. Can you start, John, with a snapshot of your size and scale today from production, processing, and how it compares to when your father, the legend Bill Prestage, first started in the business?
Yeah, let me start by how we started. Of course, we started in 1983, and the first employees, they all had the last name of Prestage. There was only 4 of us, and we were pretty small. We started in the summer of '83 after Dad sold out of being a partner in Carroll's Foods over in Warsaw. And so what really kind of got us going was we bought a small sow farm first, had to buy feed and all that, a 624 sow farm to get the hogs going. Then we bought a small turkey grow out operation from Swift. It only had like 22 employees and 18 growers. So we had a whopping about 600,000 pounds of pork produced that first year and about 8 million pounds of turkey. And back in '83 in the first year, and then we grew exponentially from there, of course, and especially in the '90s. In the '90s is when we really turned on the juice. Whenever the Tar Heel plant was built and the Rocco turkey plant was built, we supplied all the turkeys too. So where it brings us to today is we grow about 14 to 15 million turkeys, all those in the Carolinas, North Carolina, South Carolina. We grow all the hens in North Carolina and grow most of the toms in South Carolina. All the hens go to our plant we own in St. Paul's, North Carolina, and all the toms we grow go to the plant we own in South Carolina where the meat is bought by Oscar Mayer. And then we, of course, grew rapidly in hogs at the same time, started in North Carolina again. So today we have hogs in 5 states or 6 states actually, both Carolinas, North Carolina, South Carolina. We have a sow division in Mississippi that produces primarily wean pigs for Iowa. We bought a company-owned fair to finish operation from Smithfield in 2011 in Texhoma, Oklahoma, which is on the line between Oklahoma and Texas. So we got most of the sow farms are in Oklahoma, most of the finishers are in Texas, and that operation produces a little over 400,000 market hogs a year for the Seaboard plant in Guyman. And then our biggest venture, of course, is in Iowa, where we actually started back in 2004, putting in hogs to grow out. And what really prompted us to move rapidly there was we had to, the Mississippi division was designed to be a fair to finish operation to supply the Bryan Foods plant in West Point. Well, things didn't work out and they ended up closing the plant. So we made the tough decision to close some grow out facilities, but keep the sows. So today we've got about 50,000 sows that produces primarily wean pigs that all go to Iowa to be grown out, and some replacement gilts, both for themselves, for Oklahoma, and some of the North Carolina sows. So at the end of the day now, we have about 3,000 employees in 6 states across the U.S. We have about 450 growers. That's both turkey growers and hog growers. And we produce about 1.1 billion live pounds of pork. in primarily the Carolinas and Iowa. And we do about 400 million live pounds of turkey, all in the Carolinas. And, and so that's where we stand today. And it's still owned by the Prestage family.
Well, still family owned with pride. Now, with that, you've stepped into a leadership alongside with your brothers and carried forward your father's vision while preparing for the future. How has that been, John?
That's been good. Obviously, I was very fortunate, Jim, to work with Dad for, 40 years in business, not only as my father, but as my mentor and business associate. He was a great businessman and especially business partner. When he did a deal with another person in business, it was always a fair, honest deal that he stressed of the utmost importance to it's got to be good for both parties for it to be a good long-term deal. And that carried forward. We had great long-term relationships with families in the turkey business and in swine, including the looters that really put Smithfield Foods where they are today. And we've always strived to maintain that great relationship with people we either buy from or sell to or work with to produce food.
So things have changed a lot with how business is run. So your father, Bill Prestage, was a pioneer in the industry. So he had an initial vision. How did that vision and leadership philosophy shape how you're running the company today, John?
Well, Dad, he was infatuated with being a least cost producer. If I heard him say that, I heard him say it 100 times. Back in the old days when you made long-term deals on selling turkeys and selling hogs before you were integrated, you had to make deals to sell meat, to other processors. You had a term and a price that you had to live up to, and the only way you made more margin was being least cost producer. Most of the time it was measured against a parameter of average production or whatever. And if you did a better job, you might make more margin. Also, if you did a poor job, you might make less margin or even negative margin. So he was way more, dialed into being a least cost producer than a lot of guys. I used to argue with him some saying, Dad, if we get paid more, even if our cost is higher, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It was, I don't care. We always want to be the least cost producer in the country. And he was driven by that motive.
So what other core values did Bill instill that remain central to Prestige today?
Obviously, you can't do anything in this business without good people. And the only way you're going to keep good people, you got to be honest with them. You got to be straightforward, tell them the truth when times are good, when times are bad. And I think if he was a tremendous judge of character of both employees and business partners and associates, and his ability to not necessarily manipulate, but just, accentuate the relationship, you have with one another to achieve your goal of producing quality meat together was what really kind of set the tone for how we try to operate today. We realize that if we're not keeping the people we're selling to happy with our product, then it's not going to work out long term. And we've always strived to do that.
So how do you and your brothers honor his legacy while adapting to modern challenges?
Well, the modern challenges makes it tough. It's really, back when North Carolina really grew rapidly in the 90s, in the late 80s and 90s, the contract growing model was very, very prevalent. And that's really where the Southeast is where that kind of blossomed more so than the Midwest. And I think that the reason it did that was because tobacco was a huge industry in our state where we live now, and it still is. It's a lot different now. Back in those days, a family with 10 or 20 acres of tobacco could support their family with that cash crop revenue. And then when that kind of went away due to a lot of various factors, now it's primarily done in large amounts by contract production for the big boys like Philip Morris. You know, the ability for a small, family farm to exist and be a contract grower for either chickens, turkeys, or hogs was something that we realized we better try to take advantage of and try to perpetuate. And that's exactly what we've done. And we've been very proud of doing that. You have to be honest with your growers. You have to have a true partnership with them. And we've always taken a lot of pride in and having great relationship with our growers. A lot of our employees are also growers, and they see all the numbers on what we make, what the growers make, and all that. And so, you have to be honest about where things stand. And I think that honesty and integrity between the two, between the integrator, us, and the grower, them, the partner, is very important in maintaining a good, healthy relationship.
What lessons from Bill guide you most as a leader, John?
Well, he had some tough lessons in growing up, like we all did, I guess, where he didn't want to work in a business his dad owned. It was not a business that he saw as something that he wanted to do forever. He wanted to do something that he was most proud of, and to me, it's hard to be any more proud of doing something than producing food. Something people got to have to live. He realized that at an early age, and went down that path, and it carried into us. I mean, I'm just like that myself. I think that, you know, I'm glad I'm not a person that produces a product that can hurt people. I'm glad I produce a product that helps people live, and that's what's so great about food production.
Helps people live and sustain with the protein and the great things with that. So North Carolina roots and community impact. Prestige Farms has deep roots in North Carolina agriculture. How has the local community shaped the company's culture and mission?
Yeah, when we moved first of all, our entire family was born in Michigan in Battle Creek, and we moved south back in the 60s, the early 60s, when I was like 2 years old. And so we're obviously Southerners now, but we've always been very community oriented. We have very much enjoyed living in a small town. Our little town of Clinton's only about 8,500. It's been that size basically the whole time we've lived here. And we've been very involved and integrated in our community. We're one of the few towns, one of 7 independent hospitals left in our state of North Carolina. We're very proud that every year we have 2 or 3 major fundraisers. All the proceeds go to what we call the Tree of Love, which supports that hospital. We're determined to keep that hospital open, serving our rural area here where agriculture rules. And we're very proud of that. We've always been very involved in that and supporting our local fire departments, which look out for our farms, obviously our schools. We participate in all community events where, we sponsor and participate like most good companies do. And we're very proud to be North Carolinians and try to instill that in every division we have across all the other states too, but especially here at our home place in North Carolina.
So you find it important to represent North Carolina pork on a national stage?
Oh yeah, we started in North Carolina, of course, and so obviously we went to Iowa because you may or may not be aware there's been effectively a moratorium on hog production in North Carolina since '97, and there's no need to try to grow more hogs in this state. The processing is all full of animals that are here today. We wanted to keep growing. We like the hog business, and that's what spurred us to go out west where the processing and the feed is at. And so, we've tried to mimic the same model in the state of Iowa. We had to do a little more company owned because of the timeline we were under to get operations established to be able to take the pigs from the Mississippi division. And, we'd have liked to taken longer and had more and more contract growers like we got here, but we only had a couple of years to get it done, and we had to move fast.
So we talked at the top, John, about growth across pork and poultry sectors. So Prestige Farms is unique in balancing large-scale pork and poultry production. How do you lead across these 2 sectors with different challenges and opportunities?
Well, they're both similar, but they're both a lot alike. What we've elected to do is concentrate more on being a private label producer of pork and poultry, turkey. Turkey in our case, we're not in chicken, and we think we've done pretty good job of doing that, supplying large customers with their brand and their store. I'm speaking primarily to retail level, and we've done that by trying to, provide excellent service and delivery and all that and the quality. And you have to have all that. and doing the same thing in pork. We need to get better in that in pork, get more versatile, have more, products out there that people will consume. But you have to have the utmost quality, time, and perseverance to keep your supplier or the person you're supplying happy, or you don't have a future in private label production like we do.
So where do you see the most growth potential the next decade?
I think we've done a really good job of growing our tray pack in turkey, which is boneless primarily and bone-in meat that we're selling at a retail level. We're trying to do the same thing in pork. Obviously, we have a lot more pork than turkey anyway, so I see the most potential to do the same thing in pork we're doing in turkey, which is try to really make an impact on and a further processed value added boneless product in. In the retail space. And we have to do that by, getting more consumer acceptance of cooking pork in more versatile ways, something we've always struggled with, I think. And we have to get better there, but that's what we're trying to do.
Has the experience in one sector influenced innovation or strategy in another?
Yes, definitely. We've seen a lot more, I think, innovation earlier in things like ventilation and housing and poultry, primarily coming out of the broiler business that we've kind of mimicked, that we tried to extrapolate into the hog production and growing techniques. I think that's the same thing with now you got, smart controllers that monitor the environment and all that stuff in these houses, and adapting that and not being afraid of that, but using it to your advantage is something that we've always been quick to do. And I think we got to do more of that in the future. And especially we need to get better prepared with vaccines to try to prevent some of these diseases in poultry and pork. Going with the mRNA virus, vaccinations like we did for the humans in COVID and things like that, I think are what's going to keep, American meat production sustainable.
And is there a key for how you're maintaining operational efficiency across such a diverse portfolio?
We have every month when we have our fiscal close, we always have two follow-up meetings a week apart. One is where we have a whole couple hours worth of graphs and charts. All the divisions are included on a big, Teams call. And we go over all the numbers, talk about it, talk about what's good, talk about what's bad. And then the next week it's just all the numbers, the backup, the graphics. And, we try to keep everybody involved in all these divisions that aren't here at the home place every month. And then obviously I try to go out there as much as possible. I don't go as much as I used to, but I try to go. I'd love to go every week, but I can't go that often. But trying to stay involved personally and especially professionally in these divisions, I think is very important.
So what about people culture and then the family business advantage? As we talked about, Prestige is a private company and known for family-led company with people first culture. John, how do you preserve that spirit as the company continues to grow and diversifies?
Well, the good news is, we were started by my parents, mom and dad. They're what we call the G1s, first generation. Me and my two older brothers are the G2s. And we have between the three of us, 9 kids. And the good news is, seven of the 9 are involved in the business today. And so what I'm the most hopeful of is that we will keep them involved and they enjoy this business and love this business as much as I have for my whole career, is basically all I've ever done. And try to maintain what we got. We have a good foundation now. I think they see the vision we have on trying to maintain that and trying to stay focused on being a good producer of a good, wholesome product is what we're trying to get them to carry the torch doing, like we've done for the last 40 some years.
So what role do family values play in shaping company culture and decision making?
Well, family values are obviously very, very important in any family, and once again, honesty and integrity, and being straightforward on where you stand, what's doing good, what's not doing good. Those have to be measured and talked about and worked on, and then that's what we try to do.
What are you most proud of when it comes to your team today, John?
Well, I think one of the things I'm the most proud of is in all the other divisions where a Prestige family member doesn't work, we have done, I think, pretty good at promoting and letting the local people that work for us be the leaders in that division. And that's true with Mississippi, with Oklahoma, Texas, and Iowa. All of our leaders and, a lot of our middle management and all the management, really, for that matter, and all those divisions are local guys. We try to establish a relationship with them like we have with the people that we grew up with here in our community. And I think that's very important in maintaining the teamwork spread across the multiple states with one focus in mind of producing quality product that we try to do.
So innovation, technology, and industry adaptation, the pork and poultry sectors, turkey sector as well, face pressures around sustainability, biosecurity, and evolving consumer trends. How is Prestage Farms adapting to stay ahead?
Well, I think the main, obviously, we stay up on all the, of course, we're permitted on waste management in both poultry and pork. Of course, you have to adhere to that, obviously. PQA in pork and similar to that in turkey is maintained, this monitored and ministered through our trade organizations. Technology is, like I say, has come a long way in housing developments and where the animals are grown. That's probably the biggest place where I've seen the most improvement in the last 10 years, especially. And you have to be willing to upgrade and maintain that focus going forward, because there's no question these new animals today, both the turkeys and the hogs, they grow so much faster, they're so much more efficient. But if you don't give them the environment to express that possibility they have, that genetic potential, then they will perform very unfavorably. And you have to be willing to realize that the housing and the ventilation control and the waste control, if it's not monitored, really down to the minute, more so than to the half day, like in the old days with nothing but curtain sided buildings, makes a big difference in performance of these animals.
So when we talk about technology, are there any technologies, automation tools, or partnerships that excite you currently?
Yeah, the robotics and especially in packaging in the food plants is huge. I'm not, was not even exposed to that years ago, and now we are, and we've seen, the unbelievable capabilities it has on speed and especially accuracy on making sure your product is in the right place, when you're, packaging it up to be shipping it out. And that's a huge thing, along with everything that runs the equipment, both the packaging equipment and some of the process equipment in the plants. That is the game changer versus the plants of yesteryear that processed animals. That you have to be, bring in people that understand that, and it's very costly to maintain. Unfortunately, one of your costs that goes up, dramatically in these new plants is really what I call the IT maintenance cost of keeping all these fancy things running. They're great when they run, but unfortunately they tear up too. They go down, and when they're down, you're down. If you don't have people on your team that can keep them up and running quickly, it costs you a lot of money. And that's one thing we've learned the hard way that we've got to get better at in the future.
And how are you approaching environmental responsibility and animal welfare initiatives?
We've not had many problems with that, other than the fact that what scares me the most in animal welfare is not necessarily employees, but I'm gonna call them spies trying to use their phones and try to capture video of people doing bad things to the animals. That's a serious threat that's underhanded but true. And obviously our employees are all trained in what not to do. And unfortunately, we've had to terminate quite a few employees over the years that have not adhered by our policies, and we will always do that. But I'm not worried about what we're doing is wrong. I think it's very humane and it's the best thing for the animals. And it's just a matter of execution by people that come and go in your workforce.
So we're going to get to some hot topics, John. There's several topics shaping the pork industry today. I'm going to list a couple. Maybe you can touch on one or two. Prop 12 and regulatory pressures, impacts on producers in the future of compliance, tariffs and trade uncertainty, meat quality and consumer expectations, labor and immigration policies, or sustainability and environmental stewardship.
Yeah, I'll touch on a couple. Prop 12. We have a couple of our Mississippi farm, about four farms to be exact, have been monitored or been adapted to be Prop 12 compliant. We would have probably not done that had it not been forced upon us, but we did it because these farms take a lot of maintenance anyway. And we decided it was a good time to go ahead and see just how costly it is to do Prop 12 production. So we did that. We're producing those pigs today. It clearly costs more money, primarily because of the reduced density you have in these farms. And I really think the reason we did it, wasn't a good one. I think that's just a lot of unnecessary regulation we have, and I'm hoping it'll go away. But we did it just to learn about it, and we're still doing it, and we are getting paid extra money to do that. As long as we're getting that, we'll continue. But that's the wrong reason to do that. And then labor is the thing that I'm probably the most concerned about. We have had a lot of not necessarily turnover, but I guess it would almost be a resignation of employees and growers in all states, but especially here in the Southeast. Again, I talked about the small family farm that had 10 or 20 acres. Well, unfortunately, those original growers' children, they all want to move to the city. They don't want to live back in that 10 or 20 acre farm and grow hogs or turkeys for us or anybody else. And that is a major challenge. We are really struggling to keep the labor that we have to have, in place at the production facility, whether it's the feed mill or the turkey house or the hog barn. In my opinion, in modern agriculture, that's the biggest challenge we have going forward is that trying to keep labor employed, good people doing a good job taking care of these animals that you've got to have.
So with the Prop 12 and the labor, how is Prestage responding to ensure long-term resilience?
Well, we're trying to get some of the TN visa workers in the processing plants as well as on the farms. This also goes for our company turkey breeder farms. We're doing that in Eagle Grove, where our hog plant is at. We're actually involved as we speak with our local community, the town, in a partnership to build housing, single family dwelling housing for more people to move. That town is very small. We need a lot more people. That plant employs 1,000 people, and the population is only 3,500. So for us to maintain integrity, the plant, we got to have more people coming in there, and working with them to try to give affordable housing to people to be willing to relocate and work there, live there is very important that we've worked on. We've not had to do as much of that here in the Southeast, where we have a lot more people in the Carolinas, but that's getting worse because once again, the people want to live in the urban areas, not in the rural areas where we are.
So let's kind of get to the vision for the future and industry leadership. Looking ahead, John, what's your specific vision for Prestage over the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I really hope to see us continue to evolve and producing more value-added pork and poultry and expanding our private label production, of the meats we produce in both turkey and hog. Um, that's what I'm working on the most, trying to get us to do more and more of. And we have to do that. We're going to do that in pork with our new partner with Holstone Prestige, which is our marketing firm, marketing company that sells all the pork out of the Eagle Grove plant and the Fremont, Nebraska plant. I'm very excited about our possibilities of working together with our partners there to really push pork. I think we've got a pork demand problem. We've got to get more pork consumed, than we have today, especially compared to chicken. Chicken is grown just unbelievable in the last 20 years, and pork has been pretty much dead flat, and we've got to do something to turn that around.
A lot people have lots of ideas on that. So what about investments or strategic shifts that excite you the most for the future?
Well, once again, that strategic shift is us working together with the Holstone Prestige organization to sell our pork. And that's, we think we're going to be able to do a lot better together with a two-plant system, and even more so, we're adamant or very much interested in trying to expand into value added, whether it's bacon or ham or marinated pork and whatnot, tray vac. Trying to sell pork in more forms and fashions that people will eat more is the biggest thing we're working on the hardest, trying to get more pork consumed.
And what legacy, John, do you hope to leave as the leader for both the company and your community?
The legacy I would hope to leave is that Prestage Farms will continue to evolve, to stay in business and be owned by the Prestage family, with others that come into our extended family now. Obviously, the kids, as they get married and have partners, and good people come to work with us. I really hope that, we have a good thing going here, and I really hope we can keep it that way. With Prestige people involved in all divisions and in all aspects of what we do, whether it's live production or processing.
Well, great conversation, John. Are you open to the Fast Five segment to close the show?
Fast five saying, yeah, I guess so.
One book, quote, or principle that guides your leadership.
Well, I don't really have a book or a quote. Just once again, I think I've mentioned this, being a least cost producer is still what drives us the most, and especially being honest and straightforward with your growers, partners, and associates. I think is the thing you have to be the most cognizant of.
Best advice your father gave you?
A good business deal is good for both parties.
Which we talked about earlier as well.
Yep.
A proudest moment at Prestage Farms?
Probably the three proudest moments. The first one would be when we endowed the Poultry Science Department at NC State University, where I'm an alumni. All my four kids are, and my brother's children as well. It's now called the Prestige Department of Poultry Science. That has to be up there at the top. And then finally getting over the hump and getting the Eagle Grove plant built and operational, opening in 19, is a major accomplishment, and followed up by the Foods of South Carolina turkey plant that opened in 22, where my oldest brother lives. That is a major undertaking that we worked on for years with Oscar Mayer. And it's a very modern, the only air-chilled turkey plant in the United States. And we're very proud of that. That's been running now for a couple of years. And that has to be at the top.
The biggest challenge the pork or poultry industry underestimates right now?
I really think that biggest challenge is keeping this labor involved and keeping these farms running. I'm telling you, we are really struggling to keep labor at the farms and at the production facilities. You can't work from home. You have to work at the production facility. And I'm the most worried about that now, especially coming out of COVID, as I've ever been.
And 3 words to describe Prestige Farms today.
Excellent pork and poultry produced by great people.
Well, John Prestage, thanks for joining us on CEOs of the Industry.
Thank you, Jim. I enjoyed it. I want to shout out, I'm very impressed with the service you're providing to the industry. It obviously crosses over into poultry as well, not just pork, even though it's called swine web, but you're doing a good job, and I hope you can continue.
Well, thank you, John. Have a great year ahead.
Okay, thank you, sir.